Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. I do readings twice a week from various classics. If you subscribe to my free Substack newsletter at ravensview.substack.com, you'll get notified of the next episode and can leave your comments or suggestions, and perhaps also browse my flash fiction writings or musings on the world. I will be reading to you from Very Good Jeeves. It's a collection of short stories written by P.G. Wodehouse in 1930. Jeeves, a very competent valet, and his hapless employer, Bertie Wooster, were characters in dozens of short stories by Wodehouse. These are told from the point of view of Bertie. Last episode, we learned that the impending doom was likely to be against Mr. Filmer from young Thomas. But tennis may distract everyone at a crucial time. I was still careworn when, next day at 2:30, the revels commenced on the tennis lawn. It was one of those close, baking days when thunder rumbled just round the corner, and it seemed to me there was a brooding menace in the air. "Bingo," I said, as we pushed forth to do our bit in the first doubles. "I wonder what young Thomas will be up to this afternoon, with the eye of authority no longer on him." "Eh?" said Bingo absently. Already the tennis look had come into his face, and his eye was glazed. He swung his racket and snorted a little. "I don't see him anywhere," I said. You don't what?" "See him." "Who?" "Young Thomas." "Oh, what about him?" I let it go. The only consolation I had in the black period of the opening of the tourney was the fact that the Right Honourable had taken a seat among the spectators and was wedged in between a couple of females with parasols. Reason told me that even a kid so steeped in sin as young Thomas would hardly perpetrate any outrage on a man in such a strong strategic position. Considerably relieved, I gave myself up to the game and was in the act of putting it across the curate with a good deal of vim when there was a roll of thunder and the rain started to come down in buckets. We had all stampeded for the house and had gathered in the drawing room for tea when suddenly Aunt Agatha, looking up from a cucumber sandwich, said, "Has anybody seen Mr. Filmer?" It was one of the nastiest jars I have ever experienced. What with my fast serve zipping sweetly over the net and the man of God utterly unable to cope with my slow bending return down the center line, I had for some little time been living as it were in another world. I now came down to earth with a bang, and my slice of cake, slipping from my nerveless fingers, fell to the ground and was wolfed up by Aunt Agatha's terrier, Mackintosh. Once more I seemed to become conscious of an impending doom. For this man Filmer, you must understand, was not one of those men who are lightly kept from the tea-table. A hearty trencherman, and particularly fond of his 5 o'clock cups of tea and bite of muffin, he had until this afternoon always been well up among the leaders in the race for the food trough. If one thing was certain, it was only that the machinations of some enemy could be keeping him from being in the drawing-room now, complete with nosebag. "Oh, he must have got caught in the rain and be sheltering somewhere on the grounds," said Aunt Agatha. "Bertie, go out and find him. Take a raincoat to him." "Right-o," I said, and I meant it. My only desire in life now is to find the Right Honourable, and I hoped it wouldn't be merely his body. I put on a raincoat and tucked another under my arm and was sallying forth when in the hall I ran into Jeeves. "Jeeves," I said, "I fear the worst. Mr. Filmer is missing." "Yes, sir." "I'm about to scour the grounds in search of him." "I can save you the trouble, sir. Mr. Filmer is on the island in the middle of the lake." "This rain? Oh, why doesn't the chump row back?" "He has no boat, sir." "Oh, then how can he be on the island?" "He rowed there, sir, but Master Thomas rowed after him and set his boat adrift. He was informing me of the circumstances a moment ago, sir. It appears that Captain Flint was in the habit of marooning people on islands, and Master Thomas felt that he could pursue no more judicious course than to follow his example." "But good Lord, Jeeves, the man must be getting soaked." "Yes, sir. Master Thomas commented upon that aspect of the matter." It was time for action. "Come with me, Jeeves." "Very good, sir." I buzzed for the boathouse. My Aunt Agatha's husband, Spencer Gregson, who is in the Stock Exchange, had recently cleaned up to an amazing extent in Sumatra rubber, and Aunt Agatha, in selecting a country estate, had lashed out on an impressive scale. There were miles of what they called rolling parkland, trees in considerable profusion, well provided with doves and what-not cooing in no uncertain voice, gardens full of roses, and also stables, outhouses, and sheds, and the whole forming a rather fruity tout ensemble. But the feature of the place was the lake. It stood to the east of the house, beyond the rose garden, and covered several acres. In the middle of it was an island. In the middle of the island was a building known as the Octagon. As we drew near, striking a fast clip with self at the oars and Jeeves handling the tiller ropes, we heard cries of gradually increasing volume, if that's the expression I wanted. Presently, up aloft, looking from a distance as if he were perched on top of the bushes, I located the Right Honourable. He was in the middle of the Octagon, seated on the roof, and spouting water like a public fountain. It seemed to me that even a cabinet minister ought to have had more sense than to stay right out in the open like that, when there were trees to shelter under. A little more to the right, Jeeves. Very good, sir. I made a neat landing. Wait here, Jeeves. Very good, sir. The head gardener was informing me this morning, sir, that one of the swans had recently nested on this island. This is no time for natural history gossip, Jeeves, I said, a little severely, for the rain was coming down harder than ever, and the Wooster trouser legs were already considerably moistened. Very good, sir. I pushed my way through the bushes. The going was sticky and took about 8 and 11 pence off the value of my sure-grip tennis shoes in the first 2 yards, but I persevered and presently came out in the open and found myself in a sort of clearing facing the Octagon. This building was run up somewhere in the last century, I've been told, to enable the grandfather of the late owner to have some quiet place out of earshot of the house, where he could practice the fiddle. From what I know of fiddlers, I should imagine that he had produced some pretty frightful sounds there in his time, but they can have been nothing to the ones that were coming from the roof of the place now. The Right Honourable, not having spotted the arrival of the rescue party, was apparently trying to make his voice carry across the waste of waters to the house, and I'm not saying it was not a good sporting effort. He had one of those highish tenors, and his yowls seemed to screech over my head like shells. I thought it about time to slip him the glad news that assistance had arrived before he strained a vocal cord. "Aye," I shouted, waiting for a lull. He poked his head over the edge. "Aye," he bellowed, looking in every direction, but the right one, of course. "Aye, aye, 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 aye." "Oh," he said, spotting me at last. "What ho," I replied. It was sort of clinching the thing. I suppose the conversation can't be said to have touched a frightfully high level up to this moment, but probably we should have got a good deal brainier very shortly. Only just then, at the very instant when I was getting ready to say something good, there was a hissing noise like a tire bursting in a nest of cobras, and out of the bushes to my left there popped something so large and white and active that, thinking quicker than I ever done in my puff, I rose like a rocketing pheasant, and before I knew what I was doing, had begun the climb for life. Something slapped against the wall about an inch below my right ankle, and any doubts I may have had about remaining below vanished. The lad who bore "Mid snow and ice the banner with a strange device, Excelsior," was the model for Bertram. "Be careful," yipped the Right Honourable. I was. Whoever built the Octagon must have constructed it especially for this sort of crisis. Its walls had grooves at regular intervals, which were just right for the hands and feet, and it wasn't very long before I was parked up on the roof beside the Right Honourable, gazing down at one of the largest and short-tempered swans I'd ever seen. It was standing below, stretching up a neck like a hose-pipe, and just where a bit of brick, judicially bunged, would catch it amidships. I bunged a brick and scored a bullseye. The Right Honourable didn't seem any too well pleased. "Don't tease it," he said. Teased me, I said. The swan extended another 8 feet of neck and gave an imitation of steam escaping from a leaky pipe. The rain continued to lash down with what you might call indescribable fury, and I was sorry that in the agitation inseparable from shinning up a stone wall at practically a second's notice, I had dropped the raincoat which I had been bringing with me for my fellow rooster. For a moment I thought of offering him mine, but wiser counsels prevailed. "How near did it come to getting you?" I asked. "Within an ace," replied my companion, gazing down with a look of marked dislike. "I had to make a very rapid spring." The Right Honourable was a tubby little chap who looked as if he'd been poured into his clothes and had forgotten to say when, and the picture he conjured up, if you know what I mean, was rather pleasing. "It is no laughing matter," he said, shifting the look of dislike to me. "Sorry." "I might have been seriously injured." "Oh, would you consider bunging another brick at the bird?" "Do nothing of the sort. It will only annoy him." "Well, why not annoy him? He hasn't shown such a dash lot of consideration for our feelings." The Right Honourable now turned to another aspect of the matter. "I cannot understand how my boat, which I fastened securely to the stump of a willow tree, can have drifted away. Dashed mysterious. I begin to suspect that it was deliberately set loose by some mischievous person." "Oh, I say no, hardly like that. Oh, you'd have seen them doing it." "No, Mr. Wooster, for the bushes form an effective screen. Moreover, rendered drowsy by the unusual warmth of the afternoon, I dozed off for some little time, almost immediately I reached the island." This wasn't the sort of thing I wanted his mind dwelling on, so I changed the subject. "Wet, isn't it? What?" I said. "I had already observed it," said the Right Honourable in one of those nasty bitter voices. "I thank you, however, for drawing the matter to my attention." Chit-chat about the weather hadn't gone with much of a bang, I perceived. I had a shot at bird life in the home counties. "Have you ever noticed," I said, "how a swan's eyebrows sort of meet in the middle?" "I have had every opportunity of observing all that there is to observe about swans." "It gives them a sort of peevish look, what?" "The look to which you allude has not escaped me." "Rummy," I said, rather warming to my subject, "how bad an effect family life has on a swan's disposition." "I wish you would select some other topic of conversation other than swans." "No, but really, it's rather interesting. I mean to say, our old pal down there is probably a perfect ray of sunshine in normal circumstances. Quite the domestic pet, don't you know? But purely and simply because the little woman happens to be nesting—" I paused. You will scarcely believe me, but until this moment, what with all the recent bustle and activity, I had clean forgotten that, while we were treed up on the roof like this, there lurked all the time in the background one whose giant brain, if notified of the emergency and requested to flock around, would probably be able to think up in a couple of minutes half a dozen schemes for solving our little difficulties. "Jeeves!" I shouted. "Sir?" came a faint, respectful voice from the great open spaces. "My man," I explained to the Right Honourable, "a fellow of infinite resource and sagacity. He'll have us out of here in a minute. Jeeves." "Sir?" "I'm sitting on the roof." "Very good, sir." "Don't say very good. Come and help us. Mr. Filmer and I are treed, Jeeves." "Very good, sir." "Don't keep saying very good. It's nothing of the kind. The place is alive with swans." "I will attend to the matter immediately, sir." I turned to the Right Honourable. I even went so far as to pat him on the back. It was like slapping a wet sponge. "All is well," I said. "Jeeves is coming." "What can he do?" I frowned a trifle. The man's tone had been a bit peevish. I didn't like it. "That," I said, with a touch of stiffness, "we cannot say until we see him in action. He may pursue one course, or he may pursue another. But on one thing you can rely with the utmost confidence. Jeeves will find a way. See, here he comes, stealing through the undergrowth, his face shining with the light of pure intelligence. There are no limits to Jeeves's brain power. He virtually lives on fish." I bent over the edge and peered into the abyss. "Look out for the swan, Jeeves." "I have the bird under close observation, sir." The swan had been uncoiling a further supply of neck in our direction, but now he whipped around. The sound of a voice speaking in his rear seemed to affect him powerfully. He subjected Jeeves to a short, keen scrutiny, and then, taking in some breath for hissing purposes, gave a sort of jump and charged ahead. "Look out, Jeeves." "Very good, sir." Well, I could have told that Swan it was no use. And Swan's go, he may have been well up in the ranks of the intelligentsia, but when it came to pitting his brains against Jeeves, he was simply wasting his time. He might just as well have gone home at once. Every young man starting life ought to know how to cope with an angry swan, so I will briefly relate the proper procedure. You start by picking up the raincoat which somebody has dropped, and then, judging the distance to a nicety, you simply shove the raincoat over the bird's head, and, taking the boat hook, which you have prudently brought with you, you insert it underneath the swan and heave. The swan goes into a bush and starts trying to unscramble itself, and you saunter back to your boat, taking with you any friends who happen at the moment to be sitting on roofs in the vicinity. That was Jeeves's method, and I cannot see how it could have been improved upon. The Right Honourable showed a turn of speed of which I have not believed him capable, and we were in the boat in considerably under 2 ticks. "You behaved very intelligently, my man," said the Right Honourable as we pushed away from the shore. "I endeavour to give satisfaction, sir." The Right Honourable appeared to have had his say for the time being. From that moment he seemed to sort of huddle up and meditate. Dashed absorbed he was. Even when I caught a crab with my oar and shot about a pint of water down his neck, he didn't seem to notice it. It was only when we were landing that he came to life again. "Mr. Wooster?" "Oh, I have been thinking of that matter of which I spoke to you some time back. The problem of how my boat can have gone adrift." I didn't like this. "The dickens of a problem," I said. "Insoluble, I should call it. Better not bother about it any more." "On the contrary," he said, "I have arrived at a solution, and one which I think is the only feasible solution. I am convinced that my boat was set adrift by the boy Thomas, my hostess's son." "Oh, I say no. Well, why?" "He had a grudge against me, and it's the sort of thing only a boy or one who is practically an imbecile would have thought of doing." He legged it for the house, and I turned to Jeeves aghast. Yes, you might say aghast. "You heard, Jeeves?" "Yes, sir." "Well, what's to be done?" "Perhaps Mr. Filmer, on thinking the matter over, will decide that his suspicions are unjust." "Well, but they aren't unjust." "No, sir." "Well, then what's to be done?" "I could not say, sir." I pushed off rather smartly to the house and reported to Aunt Agatha that the Right Honourable had been saved, and then I toddled upstairs to have a hot bath, being considerably soaked from stem to stern as a result of my rambles. While I was enjoying the grateful warmth, a knock came at the door. It was Purvis, Aunt Agatha's butler. "Mrs. Gregson desires me to say, sir, that she would be glad to see you as soon as you're ready." "But she has seen me." "I gather she wishes to see you again, sir." "Oh, righto." I lay beneath the surface for another few minutes, then, having dried the frame, went along the corridor to my room. Jeeves was there, fiddling about with underclothing. "Oh, Jeeves," I said, "I've been thinking, oughtn't somebody to go and give Mr. Filmer a spot of quinine or something? Errand of mercy, what?" "I have already done so, sir." "Oh, good. I wouldn't say I like the man frightfully, but I don't want him to get a cold in the head." I shoved on a sock. "Jeeves," I said, "I suppose you know that we've got to think of something pretty quick. I mean to say, you realize the position? Mr. Filmer suspects young Thomas of doing exactly what he did do, and if he brings home the charge, Aunt Agatha will undoubtedly fire Mr. Little, and then Mrs. Little will find out what Mr. Little has been up to, and what will be the upshot and outcome, Jeeves? I will tell you. It will mean that Mrs. Little will secure the goods on Mr. Little to an extent to which, only a bachelor myself, I should say that no wife ought to secure the goods on her husband if the proper give and take of married life, what you might call the ancestral balance, as it were, is to be preserved. Women bring these things up, Jeeves. They do not forget and forgive." "Very good, sir." "Oh, then what about it?" "I have already attended to the matter, sir." "You have?" "Yes, sir. I had scarcely left you when the solution of the affair presented itself to me. It was a remark of Mr. Filmer's that gave me the idea." "Oh, Jeeves, you're a marvel." "Thank you very much, sir." "What was the solution?" I conceived the notion of going to Mr. Filmer and saying that it was you who had stolen his boat, sir. The man flickered before me. I clutched a sock in a feverish grip, saying, "What?" At first, Mr. Filmer was reluctant to credit my statement, but I pointed out to him that you had certainly known that he was on the island, a fact which he agreed was highly significant. I pointed out, furthermore, that you were a light-hearted young gentleman, sir, who might well do such a thing as a practical joke. I left him quite convinced, and there is now no danger of his attributing the action to Master Thomas. I gazed at the blighter, spellbound. "And that's what you consider a neat solution?" I said. "Yes, sir. Mr. Little will now retain his position as desired." "And what about me?" "You are also benefited, sir." "Oh, I am I?" "Yes, sir. I have ascertained that Mrs. Gregson's motive in inviting you to this house was that she might present you to Mr. Filmer with a view to your becoming his private secretary." "What?" "Yes, sir. Purvis and the butler chanced to overhear Mrs. Gregson in conversation with Mr. Filmer on the matter." "A secretary to that super-fatted bore? Jeeves, I never could have survived it." "No, sir. I fancy you would not have found it agreeable. Mr. Filmer is scarcely a congenial companion for you. Yet had Mrs. Gregson secured the position for you, you might have found it embarrassing to decline to accept it." "Oh, embarrassing is right." "Yes, sir. But I say, Jeeves, there is just one point which you seem to have overlooked. Where exactly do I get off?" "Sir?" "I mean to say, Aunt Agatha sent word by Purvis just now she wanted to see me. Probably she's polishing her up her hatchet at this very moment." "It might be the most judicious plan not to meet her, sir." "Oh, but how can I help it?" "There is a good stout water pipe running down the wall immediately outside this window, sir, and I could have the two-seater waiting outside the park gates in 20 minutes. I eyed him with reverence. "Jeeves," I said, "you are always right. You couldn't make it 5, could you?" "Let us say 10, sir." "Oh, 10 it is. Lay out some raiment suitable for travel, and leave the rest to me. Where is this water pipe of which you speak so highly?" End of chapter. Well, that was close. Everybody seems to have come out okay here, thanks to Jeeves. Aunt Agatha will be upset, but I think she enjoys that role in her life. Just a reminder, if you subscribe to my free newsletter at ravensview.substack.com, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. If you enjoy this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Check out my other posts on my Substack, and remember to share this with your friends. Ta-ta for now.